ultimately important for you to look at your goals, truly what you want to do in your life, and then look at the people who you spend the most time with in your life and figure out if that lines up.
All right, what's happening, guys? It is Monday, April 27th, 2020, and we're going to talk about a topic that I think everybody is probably experiencing a little bit right now, and you're probably experiencing it more with other people and maybe not even recognizing it, and that is what made me think about this topic. As I had a conversation with a couple people last week about how they were dealing with things business related, and it got me thinking, and I started to do some research on this topic of stress. So we're going to talk about the psychology of stress this morning, and then how stress kind of transcends every aspect of our lives, and how recognizing that and being able to manage through that and help other people manage through that is a huge, huge gift when you get your hands around it. You really start to understand exactly what's going on with people. So hopefully this will be helpful for you this morning. I want to say good morning to some people. What's happening? Dave, Scott, Gary, Chris, Jared, Melissa, Jacob. What's happening, brother? Leonard, Bob, Carla. Good morning, guys. Thank you guys for jumping on here. And hopefully this will be helpful for you. Hopefully it will give you a little bit of perspective like we promise by the show title. So the psychology of stress. Before we get started, if you guys could share this out to your pages or any groups that you run or anything like that, I think this is one that will reach a lot of people and really be able to get people's week started off on the right foot, which is why I wanted to talk about the psychology of stress first thing on Monday, so that people can get their arms around exactly how to handle this. And so hopefully this will make a way more productive week as we start to get back to some version of normal here. So let's get started here. So let's talk first about, how does stress affect our day-to-day lives? You know, I think that stress affects our day-to-day lives in every aspect of life, right? Whether it's personal, whether it's business, our families, how we communicate with our children. That idea of stress can really make a huge difference in how we do every single thing in our lives, and how things are kind of happening to us, right? So how other people are reacting to things that we say, how our customers are behaving from a business standpoint. So stress is kind of attached to every single aspect of life. And the reason that I wanted to talk about this morning, and the reason that it triggered me last week, is I was just thinking about how stressed so many people are right now, whether it's, the fact that everybody is kind of, stuck in the same place, stuck in their houses, and not really going anywhere, or whether it's, financial stress or business stress, or maybe things weren't good in their marriages before this, and it's put a little bit of extra stress on, the whole situation is just a little bit more stress than it was before. So stress affects our lives on a day-to-day basis in every single aspect. And so it's important to kind of have that sense about you of when A, you are getting stressed, and B, when you are experiencing stress from somebody else, right? When that person is just not necessarily behaving in the same way that they normally would. So let's talk about some of the behaviors that people exhibit when they are stressed. When you are talking to people on the phone and they seem a little bit zoned out, they're not necessarily quite as dialed in as they normally would be. That is a signal that someone is stressed. You're normally talking to this person and they're usually really engaging in conversation, but you've been talking to them and they're just a little bit unplugged. That's a sign that someone is stressed. Obviously, if you're in person, you can see their body language. You can see that they're maybe not completely dialed in. Some of the other behaviors would be somebody completely changes their routine from a day-to-day basis, right? They're normally super dialed in, super disciplined, and you see them just kind of, chilling out on the couch, or they're not doing the things that they normally do. They're typically working out. Now they're not. There's a lot of things that people can exhibit that will absolutely give you that signal that someone else is more stressed than they normally are. And so it's important. And those things happen to us as well, right? To you, you will recognize those same sort of behaviors. So it's important to recognize those things if it's in yourself, so that you can help, manage through that. So you can kind of create a strategy. We're going to get into that here in a second, of how to deal with, when you get stressed, because everybody gets stressed from time to time, right? It's how we deal with that. How do we counterpunch the stress is the most important part. And so I'm going to talk to you about how to handle the challenges of stress with customers, a couple examples, of how I'm trying to deal with the stresses that come along with the business that we're in. And then we're going to talk about how to deal with the stress in yourself and how to deal with the stress in the people around you. But how do you recognize those things in yourself? I think that this is one of the things that I talk about all the time. I am a believer that self-discipline and doing things in your day-to-day activities and day-to-day life that create self-discipline helps you to recognize when you're stressed. It's a very easy thing to do when you are on the right page with yourself. But when you're not on the right page with yourself, when you allow yourself to constantly make excuses that aren't true, when you constantly allow yourself to make promises to yourself and not keep them, when you are not doing the things that you say you're going to do, it gets more difficult to recognize these things in yourself because you're used to not telling yourself the truth. Think about that. Isn't that true? In a lot of places in our lives, we have gotten to a situation where we have allowed ourselves off the hook in a variety of different ways, whether it's, again, we go through these all the time, whether it's, I'm going to commit to being healthier or to eating healthier, or I'm going to commit to doing these things with my family. I'm going to commit to having a date night with my wife or my husband. I'm going to commit to whatever it is. And then we fall off of that and we allow ourselves those excuses. We forgive ourselves for things that we have promised. And that leads to us being a little bit disconnected from, the person that we want to be or the situation that we want to find ourselves in. And so when we start to look in the mirror at ourselves, we don't necessarily always believe what we say. And that compounds on itself. And so the best way for you to recognize stress in yourself is to find ways to exercise self-discipline. So to have a specific routine, to have, things that you're supposed to do every single day and you check it off on a to-do list, and then recognize when you're starting to not do those things, because that's the first sign that you're getting stressed is, you're short with the people around you. You're not doing the things that you typically would do. And so recognizing those things in yourself is really important to take the next step of starting to solve it, starting to actually counterpunch the stress and actually get back on track to your normal routine, start to do the things that you'll find yourself back in that rhythm that felt familiar, that felt comfortable, that felt like you were moving forward. And so I see a lot of people right now that are really off their game. And some of the people that I speak to are some of the highest performers that I know. And this situation that we're all experiencing has really gotten them off track. So if you found yourself off track, let me know in the comments if you're willing to share. Let me know in the comments if you felt a little bit stressed, if you felt a little bit off track. And now we're going to dig into just a little bit about how to solve that stress, like a tactical way. One of the conversations that I had last week with someone specifically was about how to deal with this with our customers, because, people like in our business, for example, there's going to be some budget shifting. There's going to be some adjustments happening with the property and facility managers or the building owners that we work with. Those things are going to shift a little bit. And how do you deal with that? When your family is stressed or your wife or your husband is stressed, how do you deal with that? How do you actually help them through the whole idea of, dealing with this stress that we're all presented with. And so I want to talk to you first about the conversation that I had last week. So we were talking about customers and in our business, we've got proposals out, obviously, to a lot of customers. A lot of customers had plans to do projects this year. And a lot of businesses are going to experience something like this. There's going to be a little bit of a shift in the money that people are spending, or how they're going to spend it, when they're going to spend it is going to, possibly be shifted to different times in the year. So this person that I was talking to was talking about the fact that, we are dealing with customers that, maybe we had $250,000 proposals to, and now that customer wants to reduce that down to $80,000. And so that is impacting, the financial forecast that this company has. And so this client of mine was telling me that, he was trying to explain to the customer why he should do a little bit more than that reduced budget, because it made more sense and it was better value for him. And I don't disagree with having that conversation. I would just caution you that when people are stressed and you give them a little bit of pressure, like, maybe suggesting that they do a little bit more, there's two things that could happen. Either they get more stressed, or maybe they become confused. And in both of those situations, the customer will do nothing, because when somebody is confused or when they're stressed, they typically do not make a decision. So you have to understand the psychology of stress and what it's going to do to people. So when someone is overly stressed, which a lot of people in their jobs are going to be right now. However, on the negative side of stress, if we give them more stress on top of what they're already dealing with, which they're learning how to deal with, they're learning how to harness that power of stress to still be productive. But if we pile a little bit more on top of that and tell them that they could possibly be making a bad decision, or we throw something at them that they're not expecting, or we make them question what they're doing, chances are they're probably going to do nothing in that moment. And that could cost us, instead of, costing us the difference between 250,000 and 80,000, it could cost us all 250,000, right? So my suggestion to you guys who are dealing with this in business, dealing with budget shifts, things like that, is, number one, if you're going to have the conversation about maybe what they should do in addition to the $80,000 that we're talking about right here, it should be minimal that you're trying to add on. There's a reason that they went to 80,000. Their budget is probably going to be adjusted to somewhere around there. They're dealing with moving a lot of pieces around to make sure that they can get done what they want to get done this year. So make sure if it's anything more than what they are suggesting to you, that number one, you understand what situation they're in before you try to kind of adjust their boat to a different path. And number two, do it in a way that is not going to stress them out. Very, very gently, not forceful at all, because if you create more stress or you create confusion, you're going to make them do nothing. And that's going to cost you a lot in business. My suggestion to our team is let's help the customer the best that we can with the adjusted budget that we have. And then let's adjust all of the rest of that. So the additional work that needs to be done in our business, we put that towards the back of the year. So we just adjust that, create a new proposal for the customer, and we say, no problem. Let's get this knocked out of the way. Let's see how the rest of the year goes here. And we'll hold the rest of this for the back end of what we're doing here on the back side of the year. We'll hold this proposal and see where we're at. We'll readjust the assessments and things that we've done for your property to show the partial work that has been done, and then we'll hold the rest of it and we'll see what happens. Hopefully this year bounces back and we get, all of that work on the backside. If not, then we're still servicing the customer. We're making them feel good about their decision, and we're guiding them to spend what they do have to spend in the best way possible. Okay, so that's on the professional side. On the personal side, if you find yourself stressed, if you're checking all these boxes that we're talking about here of, man, you're just kind of frozen in fear, you're in that flight or fight mode, as Owen mentioned here. If you find yourself in those situations, there is only one way out of it, guys. There is one way out of it, and that is to take massive action towards solving that problem for yourself. It is not by sitting around and thinking about the problem. It's not around, talking to other people on your team about the problem. It is about creating a strategy and literally as fast as possible going and taking massive action. Have you ever noticed that the days that you are most busy, you can have things going on in your life that are crazy, but as long as you are super busy, it goes down. Those days go by and the stress level goes down, and it's all way, way, way better if you just continue to take massive action. So I want you guys to understand that everybody right now is going to be stressed. Everybody has a level of stress right now. It is how you decide to manage that stress that is going to dictate how successful you are, both right now and especially into the future. I had a conversation with a team on Friday, and this is how we closed the day. And I want you guys to understand that some of this stress is being created by what you're consuming. So whether it's social media and the people that you're friends with, whether it's what you're watching on television, even be careful about what movies and things like that you're watching. If you're watching, for example, scary movies, for example, is not something that we're going to watch in my house right now because it creates, additional stress. It creates potential anxiety, things like that for people. And so if you're watching stuff on TV or you're consuming stuff on social media that is creating stress for you, then you have to learn how to counterpunch that too. And so we want to spend the least amount of time counterpunching and the most amount of time just on offense, trying to move forward. And so I want to give you one of the examples that we talked about with this team on Friday. And that is, the fact that the news is telling everyone that it's going to be, 12 to 24 months it's going to take to get out of, the economic downturn that we're in, whatever that turns out to be. People are saying, oh, this is the worst economic downturn that we'll ever experience in our lives. And listen, that may be true, but here's what I want you guys to remember. That is someone creating stress for you, number one. So recognize that. Number two, taking massive action will not allow that to take over your life. It will not allow that to control your life. What it will do is it will shorten the cycle that you experience, because what those people are talking about on the news, they're talking about the whole situation, the global situation, the situation for all of our country or all of the world. They're not talking about your situation. And your situation will be controlled by you. And the actions that you take will dictate how long you spend in that economic downturn. And so it goes back to the same thing that I just said, taking massive action, having a plan, because I can tell you this, I'm not going to experience, my team is not going to experience, the people that are in my programs, if I have anything to do with it, are not going to experience the same economic downturn that everybody else is. And here's how I'll prove it to you. The question I would ask you is this: in any business that you are in, will there be enough work, enough business in your market that if you got it all, you would still be successful and still hit your original goal for this year? Is it possible? And the answer is yes, a resounding yes in every situation. So our job as professionals is to take enough massive action to create some level of normalcy and eliminate that stress. So take the stress that exists, use it as fuel, understand the psychology of stress, and convert that into success throughout this year, throughout this week. Start with this week and start just creating new behaviors, recognizing the stress, understanding the psychology of stress, and use it to your advantage. Because every single person right now is being told that this year will be less successful than others. It's just not true. And so what I will tell you is this: It will take more action. It will take better teamwork. It will take more reps of doing the same things that you used to do to get the same result. But it will not change the result that you are able to achieve. Will not change it. You might have less time to do it, and it might take more effort. But the reality is that you are believing what other people are telling you. If you think that this year is going to be any different than any other year, because it comes down to, what are you going to do? What are you going to do today? How are you going to influence those people around you? How are you going to inspire those people around you? How are you going to change your own mindset, your own psychology, to start believing what's possible instead of the negative stuff that we are all being fed right now? So I want you guys to understand that the psychology, if you guys want to read on this, you could literally just Google the psychology of stress, and you'll start to understand so much about it. And you'll start to understand, like, why do I feel the way that I feel when I start to get stressed or worried? Why do I feel the way that I feel? What are the chemical reactions that are happening in my mind and my body that are causing these things to happen? And then you'll start to understand that the advice that I'm giving you this morning about taking action, about recognizing this stuff and how to navigate it, it's true, because it counterpunches everything that's happening in your body as a result of the fear or the stress or the anxiety that you're experiencing. And I'm telling you guys, there's so many people out there that are experiencing this right now, and they need our help. They need people to explain to them how to counterpunch this, how to overcome this feeling, this debilitating feeling of stress that a lot of people experience. And so I would ask you guys this morning to please share this out, share it with anybody that you think would benefit from it. In a few minutes here this morning, probably by 9 o'clock, it'll be transferred over to all the other platforms. So both on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, all that stuff, it'll be available for you guys to share there as well. But please share this out to people, because I'm telling you, there's so many people that I talk to, and these are high-level performers that are having a really tough time processing all of this. And I know that when we get off the phone after we have these conversations, that there's a more upbeat person on the other end of the line. And so I want to get this to as many people as possible so that people start to think through these things. They don't just, flow down the river of negativity and stress that people are being fed right now, but they actually start to think about what's going on around them and start to make decisions in line with doing the right things, with taking the massive action that's going to help them. It's going to help them both feel better from a day-to-day basis, because they're going to stay busy, they're going to stay active. And on the backside of this, it's going to shorten the amount of time or eliminate, the time that they spend feeling like they're just completely off track. So with that said, guys, I hope it was helpful to you guys. Again, discipline is going to help you a ton. If you're not working on your self-discipline, or you need some advice on how to work on that, shoot me a DM, shoot me a message. If you guys have my phone number, shoot me a text, and I'll give you some suggestions of what I've done in the past, what I'm doing right now to try and manage this stress and keep myself productive, focused, and moving forward, so that, everything on the backside of us kind of being sheltered in place here goes back to normal as quickly as possible. So again, guys, I appreciate everybody being here. I appreciate those of you who have shared this already. It means a lot to me, and it'll mean a lot to the people that you're able to share it out to as well, I believe. So thank you guys again. I will see you tomorrow morning, Tuesday, 7:30 a.m. right here, same place, same time on Morning Perspective. Love you guys. Appreciate you being here.